Welcome back. Sorry, I didn't know I was on the show yet. Welcome back. It is Thursday, February 20th. Got a couple of pretty major announcements. Let's start with this. Kash Patel was narrowly confirmed, but confirmed nonetheless. Win by an inch, win by a mile, doesn't really matter. He still won. He's in. So what's going to happen? We're going to be joined by two guests today. One, Jake Lang was kicked out of CPAC. So were a couple other people. What I find very strange about it is the why. Is it that we have three different sets and standards? President Trump pardoned these people. And you can think what you want about Jake Lang. But here's the reality of it is he was pardoned. And they had him spend money on a booth. He had a booth, showed up, and he got kicked out. He got kicked out yesterday, and he got kicked out again today. So we got much more to talk about, which comes up next.
Untamed is going to be untamed. It's going to be a little crazy. I want to talk to my people. I want to talk to my brothers and sisters. We can have grace and humility in how we interact with other people.
Oh, hot dog, look at you.
And nobody talked about what's really happening.
And let's have conversations about what truth is.
So before we start, we start talking to Jake, or we start talking to anybody for that matter, I want to tell you that Chief of Staff for President Trump put everyone in check. So today he gave everyone a civics lesson. And more than anything in the world, it put to rest the fake news media. That is, if you can get the radical left to pay attention. Let's go ahead and play it.
It is true that many of the people in this room for 4 years failed to cover the fact that Joe Biden was mentally incompetent and was not running the country. It is also true that many people in this room who have used this talking point that Elon is not elected fail to understand how government works. So I'm glad for the opportunity for a brief civics lesson. A president is elected by the whole American people. He's the only official in the entire government that is elected by the entire nation, right? Judges are appointed, members of Congress are elected at the district or state level, just one man. And the Constitution, Article 2, has a clause known as the vesting clause, and it says the executive power shall be vested in a president, singular. The whole will of democracy is imbued into the elected president. That president then appoints staff to then impose that democratic will onto the government. The threat to democracy, indeed the existential threat to democracy, is the unelected bureaucracy of lifetime tenured civil servants who believe they answer to no one, who believe they can do whatever they want without consequence, who believe they can set their own agenda no matter what Americans vote for. So Americans vote for radical FBI reform, and FBI agents say they don't want to change. Or Americans vote for radical reform on our energy policies, but EPA bureaucrats say they don't want to change. Or Americans vote to end DEI, racist DEI policies, and lawyers at the Department of Justice say they don't want to change. What President Trump is doing is he is removing federal bureaucrats who are defying democracy by failing to implement his lawful orders, which are the will of the whole American people.
All right. Well, Apollo, can you hit the mute button for a minute so I can go through this? I'm sorry, everyone. We are going to, basically that was a civics lesson. And the basic civics lesson is this. The president is the only person that is elected by the people. I don't agree with the fact that we talk about democracy. We have democratic processes. We do not have a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. But it seems like we mule things and we talk about intelligence and then we just forget or leave the part of it that is designed for people to understand the entire truth. But it's been happening on the Democrat side and the Republican side. It's this kind of mixture that has happened of confusion and chaos. So we're going to talk to Jake Lang today. So obviously Jake Lang was a political prisoner that spent 4 years and 6 days in the DC gulag before he was released on January 21st. And they reluctantly released him. He was one of the last ones. Actually, there's still a few that have not been released, but one of the last ones to be released. And CPAC has started. But it would appear at CPAC that not everyone is welcome. My problem with CPAC, and I said this yesterday, is that CPAC itself is the deep state. You can say, Joe, there's a lot of good people there. President Trump will speak there. Yeah, that doesn't. What has the Republican Party, before Donald J. Trump, before Trump, what was the Republican Party to any Republican? Like, what did it accomplish? I mean, give me some key factors, some key things that the Republican Party, did they lower taxes? No. Did they reduce entitlements? No. Did they reduce the deficit? No. Did they stop greed and corruption in Washington, D.C.? No. Did they handshake and fist bump with the Democrats when the election was stolen in 2020? Yeah. Did they refuse to talk about stolen elections and stolen systems that were used to steal elections? Yeah. Did they pick and choose things that they would be willing to talk about in public? Yeah. Did they show a lack of courage? Yep. So please tell me what the platform of the Republican Party and the CPAC specifically brings to the table. Tell me what any of these institutions that have a reckless disregard, not regard, but a reckless disregard for the very people they say that they represent. See, the Republicans and the Democrats are just divvying up the road. And we don't have, you look at the leadership on the Democrat side and the Republican side, yeah. You talk about Kennedy, the guy is absolutely complete. He is strong. But of the nearly 4,500 positions that are elected in the United States that are held by Republicans, a vast majority of them capitulate or look like they're trying to hold the door closed with these radical ideas and ideologies that have crept into every part of our society. And it doesn't mean that it just happens in the Democrat strongholds. These ideas have leaked into every part of our institutions. This institutional rot, this absolute, what you can only call a cancer that has run across our country, didn't just originate and stay and hang out on the Democrat side. And greed and corruption and a thirst for power and money are not single-sided. And so when we talk about Jake being removed from the CPAC, you have to wonder why. And it doesn't matter if you support Jake Lang or you don't support Jake Lang. It makes no difference. He did spend 4 years and 6 days in prison. That is true. And what would break most Americans did not break him. So with that, I want to have a conversation with Jake Lang. I want to know why. Like, why were you kicked out of CPAC? I'm going to get to the bottom. So with that said, Jake, welcome to the show. Are you in
CPAC? This is my official, like, I'm not messing around. Like showing up like the Matrix, like a gladiator trying to get into CPAC look. And we were denied for the second day. This day was even more indignifying because, you know, we were told by the CPAC representatives had reached through different channels and said that not only are they inviting me back, but they were going to comp the booth that we had there, that they were going to pay for the J6 booth that I had spent thousands of dollars on. And so I said, okay, that was an act of goodwill. Let me show back up. We had about 40 or 50. Hey, how we doing, sweetheart? Oh, thank you. We had showed back up about 50 people. We all went to the check-in area. All J6ers standing there together, unified. You know, we were expecting that we were going to be let in. It was just taking them a while to pass the football up and get, you know, an understanding of how they were going to, you know, graciously, you know, swallow their pride and apologize for yesterday's horrible, horrendous treatment. But none of that happened. They got 4 police officers to escort us out. And in fact, they actually assaulted my friend Isaac Thomas, the youngest J6er. They ripped his credentials off his neck and literally threw him out of the building because he was, you know, advocating for me as I was being physically removed from the building. And so we're still living in an America where it seems that J6ers are being persecuted, that we are being publicly tormented, disrespected, and humiliated, just like under the Biden regime. It doesn't seem like anything's changed. Conservative Inc. wants to see us, completely publicly shamed out of, any place where we could hang out with people.
Okay, Jake, let me ask this question, and I think that I probably already know the answer to it. You went into CPAC. You went in there with the understanding that you would get your credentials. Was there could this be a Gaylord issue, that the Gaylord doesn't want you there? Could this be something other? So they said that the CPAC themselves had decided.
Joel Oldman here. There's Ethan Nordine there.
What's up, brother? How you
all the Proud Boys are here.
All the Proud Boys. Let's go.
Yep.
Okay,
so I've been emailing back and forth with CPAC for weeks about my booth. I got a booth last year. I spent $10,000 last year on a booth, and I bought 22 tickets this year for all of the J6ers to be able to come. I bought plane tickets. I got a massive Airbnb. Everything was supposed to be, on the up and up. I was there setting up my booth for 3 hours prior to the check-in, getting my step and repeat. I bought a bunch of t-shirts, Jan 6. Let me see the Jan 6 t-shirt here. Actually, let me show you. I don't know if it's going to blur it out, but I want to show them the t-shirt. Full pardon. So we bought, hundreds of t-shirts for a minute. We bought hundreds of t-shirts, spent $1,000 on their Wi-Fi and electricity package. I mean, we're tens of thousands of dollars invested. And they come to me and they say, as I'm checking in, they say, your credentials have been revoked. I say, why? Let me talk to the decision maker. They don't want to give me any information. And instead of, with any dignity or with any humility or any human grace for somebody who has, I told them, if you guys see the viral video, I said, I just spent 900 days in solitary confinement. And then you're going to kick me out of CPAC like I'm some random street criminal or some unwanted vagabond. I said, this is an indignity. This is an oppression that cannot and will not be tolerated. And so, today they started letting in Big O Barnett, the guy who put his feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk, and Stewart Rhodes, who were kicked out yesterday as well. They allowed their credentials to go through. But me, because of the outspoken stance that I've had since, on January 6th and since January 6th against the deep state, I've positioned myself, especially with my new announcement that I'm running for United States Senate in the state of Florida against Ron DeSantis's little minion, Ashley Moody, who represents the deep state and conservative. Remember when Ron DeSantis announced he was running, tens of millions of dark conservative money that the same CPAC donors started flooding in there. And so they know that I'm running against Ashley Moody. I'm the current front runner, the only person primarying her. And so, they're very scared and they're not letting me back into CPAC because I'm a Senate candidate running against the deep state.
Okay, so let me kind of look at holistically all the things that you're saying to me. Number one, you got kicked out. You showed up respectfully. You didn't do anything that would have been considered disrespectful. You didn't cause a scene. You showed up with about 50 other people. Were all the other 50 people kicked out as well, or were some of those selectively let in? You're muted. Jake, there you go.
Hey, yeah, I can hear you now. I think I'm off mute now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the same deep state people behind Ron DeSantis's run.
My question is, did you show up respectfully to the event?
Oh, of course. Of course.
Some of the other 50 people let in? Were they not let in? What was the outcome?
For yesterday, we were there before the event even started setting up our booth, and we got kicked out in the middle of setting up our booth when we went to the check-in area. Very respectful. Today I went up saying, God bless you, and thank you guys for having me back. And everybody was very respectful. We were all just screaming live. They decided to kick us out, not because of any kind of behavior we had, but because of what we represent. We represent the uncompromising, unyielding patriotism of 1776 and the Make America Great Again, real Republicans. And CPAC represents the establishment, deep state, uniparty rhinos. And so, we fought against that, and we're going to continue to stand against that. And regardless if we're invited at CPAC or not, we'll do our own events. We'll have our own networks. We'll do everything our own, just like Untamed. Beautiful, amazing, 100% support behind that. That's what we should be doing as Americans.
So let's talk about did they get rid of your booth, or did they allow somebody to actually man your booth?
No, the booth is still there. We have, like 50 J6ers there. That's the J6 booth. That's where my people can go to sit down, to do interviews, to relax, to answer questions, and they allowed the booth to stay. But they're threatened by me specifically and by the other leadership of January 6th, Enrique Tarrio and Stewart Rhodes, who were also removed from the event yesterday. And so, one of the things about January 6ers that everybody knows is that you can't buy off a Jan 6er. We spent 4 years incarcerated. We fought the deep state. We never relented. And so CPAC likes, good little mouthpieces, puppets that they can use. And we're just not that. And so, we're a threat to their wicked.
Is there a divide between the J6ers, President Trump, and what you see as the establishment Republicans? And I mean, we're starting to see kind of this melding that's happening with Democrats and Republicans. You have Bobby Kennedy, you have Tulsi Gabbard, you have others, Elon Musk, even, who for most of his life and career, gave money to the Democrats. Do you think that there's some healing that's happening, or there's a division at on the Republican side at all that's kind of an underpinning resistance or rub that maybe you got subject to or pushed into?
So right now, there is only one divide happening: deep state versus we the people. And Donald Trump and the Make America Great Again movement represent the will of we the people. And Robert Kennedy, Tulsi Gabbard, these people have rejected their handlers in the deep state and decided to be mavericks, leaders, and patriots. And we support them. But there are factions that are still alive and well in the Republican Party that do not want that. They're trying to compromise the integrity of our movement and to turn back the Republican Party 20 years to where it was the old boys country club of George Bush and Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy. And so we represent the direct opposition to that, the January 6th movement and the leadership of that movement. And that is why we were not welcomed at CPAC. Plain and simple. Okay.
So I look at this from the perspective of how do we identify them, right? I mean, how do we? I mean, it's great. Look, brother, I hate rhetoric. I freaking hate it. I want to. There's people that I call out every single day. I'm like, this person is shit. Jovan Pulitzer, shit. Like this Scott McMahon, shit. I mean, I could just walk down the line, just shit people, right? So when we're looking at this, how do we differentiate? I mean, I know some people, I didn't go to CPAC because I didn't want to be around the swamp creatures. And frankly, I didn't want to be around grifters. I didn't want to be around people who talk the talk and don't walk the walk and don't really contribute to anything, but are a good mouthpiece for themselves, right? That's why I didn't go. So where's the line? Where do we divide it? Do we make a list? I don't even think a list makes sense. At some point, you got to infiltrate CPAC in order to do what President Trump did, to say, look, I'm going to take the front seat of the Republican Party. I'm going to run with it. But there are so many Brutuses. I mean, Trump's surrounded by Brutuses, but he's less surrounded in his current role than he ever has been. But there are bad people out there.
There are bad people out there. We know them. We've named them. We've identified them. And it's truly, what Jesus Christ tells us, you can tell a tree by its fruits. And so look at the people, the conservative, so-called conservative influencers, so-called January 6th advocates that were backing up CPAC's decision to remove us from the grounds today. Julie Kelly was used as a mouthpiece by Mercedes and Matt Schlapp yesterday and today to reinforce this draconian, disgusting oppression on January 6ers by saying that we were allegedly there to cause disruption and to misrepresent January 6ers. First of all, sweetheart, God bless you, but you haven't spent a day in prison. You were not there on January 6th. You were not there when people were dying and the police were killing people. You don't know what it's like to be a Jan 6er. You're not one of us. You're a mouthpiece used by conservative Inc. to gloss over January 6th and make it somewhat reproachable. But you do not represent January 6ers. And the fact that CPAC, when all of us, Enrique Tarrio's liberated, great American hero, Stewart Rhodes, former Yale attorney, liberated, and they're not put up on the list to speak at CPAC. But Julie Kelly, the Washington, D.C. hack political talking head that was anointed the official January 6th.
The one that gave money to Biden. The one that gave money to Biden.
Yes, a former Democrat activist and fundraiser. So,
is Lindy Lee going to talk? Or are you going to put Lindy Lee on the stage?
Yeah, because I don't know, but
scheduled to speak. I mean, this is the craziness of it. We have people on the Republican side that said, "Hey, in droves, bring in the Democrats, or just do me a favor, just change that D, just draw. Let's make it an R. Like you're leaving the Democrat Party. Just come on in here and tell us what we don't already know. Oh, you're just going to tell us what we know, Lindy Lee." A fundraiser for the Democrats up until Election Day comes out 3 days later and says, "You know what? I'm leaving the Democrat Party." It's kabuki theater.
Listen, Steve Bannon has my number personally, right? He knows who I am. He knows I was freezing outside CPAC for 4 hours live streaming after being humiliated and dehumanized. And what does he do? Instead of text me and apologize, because he's, deeply embedded in CPAC. He's like 20 events there. He is CPAC. What does he do? Instead of reach out to me, apologize, say, "Jake, we want to make this right, ... let's meet up, blah, blah," whatever, as a normal human being would, after somebody who spent 4 years and 6 days as a political prisoner, deserves that level of dignity, mano y mano, to be explained to why I was kicked out, why I was treated like an animal, why I was left like trash on the side of the street. He goes and he texts my media affiliates, the people that I stream with, the people that I work with. Everybody knows who those people are. He goes and texts those people, saying that he was so disappointed about the things I was saying on the live stream, that I was forced to live stream to hundreds of thousands of people watching live yesterday as I was being humiliated and kicked out of CPAC. And C. Bannon reaches out to my partners saying that Jake was way off base and the things that he was saying. Why didn't you come outside CPAC and walk me back in yourself? What? These people, they're not for us. They've grifted off the January 6th movement. They grifted off the MAGA movement itself. And, they have moved the needle forward in some ways, shapes, and forms to try to help us out. But in the end of the game, the true line of who is a person of integrity, who actually is willing to stand up, is January 6th. People that openly advocate for us and against our abuse that we're currently still living under are real patriots. And those who sit silently and pretend nothing's happening are false acts. And they deserve to be extricated from the MAGA movement.
All right. I agree with you 1,000% in so many different ways. Yesterday, I had somebody came to me and say, who's one of my closest friends. He is one of my closest friends. And I'm getting ready to go on a show to talk about things. And I get asked questions about why I stepped away from Lindell TV. And I thought I did a really good job explaining it. But he says, "Joe, you cannot, this is not a fight that you need to fight."
There's Enrique Tarrio.
Enrique, you got to come on, brother. You got to come on. There
you go. Now he's in your headphones too.
you got to come on and you got to talk to me. You got to talk to the listeners. Man, I will give you a voice and I will give you a platform. And frankly, I just want to say thank you for the work that you did. And Stewart Rhodes knows me really well. So
obviously, are we live right now? I can't.
Yes, we are live right now.
Live. You talk to us.
I will put you guys on a group chat.
I can't hear him. Wait, hold on. Were you muted? What just happened?
So jump on.
All right, do it again. Say it again.
I got it.
So jump on.
We're dealing with AirPod headphones that are noise canceling.
Geez.
Yes, he said we're going to put you in a group chat with Enrique, and he's going to come on. He promised you.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll give him whatever time. I'll do long form, give him 3 or 4 hours, same way I would give you. So,
of course.
But Jake, I was told that I can't win this fight by one of my brothers. He's like, "You can't win this fight," and I was like, "I don't give a shit about winning the fight. What I care about is that I want to be able to stand next to my brothers and sisters. I don't care if you're a Republican. I don't care if you're a Democrat. I don't care if you're Barney and you're purple with webbed feet. I could care less. What I care about is the ideal, the opportunity that presents itself as Americans, and that's been stripped from us. Like we're institutional slaves." And so I think what you said yesterday, I was listening. I kept trying to text you while you're on the line.
No, everybody got 350 text messages while I was on live yesterday. Everyone's trying. I had to turn my phone on Do Not Disturb because I'm like, I'm trying to do something here, people. I'm trying to speak out against CPAC. This is the fall of CPAC. We are announcing it now. This is the end of CPAC, and the Rhino establishment hacks will fall immediately. I'm telling you, this marks a new era. That millions of Americans know what happened to us yesterday. And they're not. This is going to be the last year of CPAC, God willing.
I mean, but here's the other thing. You got milquetoast people. You got guys that are on your side, Jake. And those guys that are on your side took this, well, I'm glad somebody is standing up and saying something, but they didn't blast them. They didn't say to them, hey, listen, you guys don't represent the people. You don't get to decide what voice is more powerful than another. The people do. That's the whole idea of this so-called democracy, right? That we're supposed to have an exchange of ideas. We're supposed to talk through things and debate those ideas and see what rises to the top. But that's not what's happening at CPAC. That's not what's happening at any of these kabuki theater environments. My fear is this. My fear is that the voice of the people gets put back to sleep. They send everybody a check for $5,000, and all of a sudden, we've cut the government budget by 8%. We're still underwater, and all of these things happen, and the people still get in a place where they're paying for everything, and institutions, they don't own anything. You don't own your house. You don't own your car.
You'll own nothing, and you'll like it.
Right. And that's really where we're at. That's the crux of where we're at.
You'll get thrown out of CPAC, and you'll like it.
I didn't show up because I promise you, I probably would have negotiated you back in. I still have people that do like me on that side. And here's the other
many friends, but see, the thing is a friend, a friend that's willing to sacrifice their own stature to reach down to make sure that you are respected is a true friend. We have many friends inside that building. I know almost every single media person, podcast and stuff, but name one person that said, who's a speaker at CPAC, that said, because the J6ers were indignified and kicked out yesterday, I will not be speaking at CPAC. Name one person. Name one person who's got a set of balls enough to do that, okay? Because I'm the type of man that if they were to do that to one of my people, I would refuse to support in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I told all of the security guards, and as I've told many prison guards as I've been incarcerated, I said, listen, I'm a patriot, and I'm maybe a different caliber person than you are, but there's no way on God's green earth that I ever would allow myself to work at a facility or like an organization that mistreats and abuses January 6ers. I said, I would quit immediately. I said, I don't have it in me to go and to be another spoke in the wheel of the destruction of my people. And the cowards at CPAC that just stood by and watched as, these tyrants bulldozed through me and my brothers and humiliated us in front of the world. They're the problem. The brown shirts are the problem. There will always be evil people that usurp and take power. That is a timeless thing. But it's inside the heart of each individual man to have discernment from God in order to either follow an unlawful or an immoral command, or to say, no, I serve a God in heaven, and I'm not going to kick Jake Lang out of CPAC. He deserves to be here. He suffered for this country. Leave that guy alone, And the people who are silent and watch these things go down are the problem.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Just so you know, I did get kicked off of X again for another 12 hours. This will be the second time it's happened, and I'll kind of get into the why of that right afterwards. So you can go to so many other different places. You can even go to YouTube now. We're on YouTube. They haven't kicked us off yet. Seems like we're talking about truthful stuff. And they also got the memo that we've sued a lot of people. But Jake, here's the moment. I don't want to play all of it, but here's the moment. Put us on the side, if you would. The moment by which you got kicked out of CPAC. I happened to be on the show while it was happening. So I'm watching it on my phone, trying to text you, trying to talk on, trying to do everything all at once. But here's the moment.
Yeah, not here. Another time.
And then I'll let you go. I know you're busy. We'll get you back on. I'll talk about a few other things, but I just want to show this real quick clip. Go ahead and play it.
Hi guys, right now, my name's Jake Lang. This is Cynthia from CPAC. She's one of the managers here. They're telling me right now I am not allowed to stay at CPAC. They are kicking January 6ers out of CPAC live. We are right now live on the Gateway Pundit on Blessed News. This is Cynthia right here. This woman is telling me that my credentials have been removed. I did 900 days of solitary confinement. I was just released from the DC Gulag 29 days ago with a presidential pardon. Excuse me. And you're removing my credentials from CPAC. After I just bought a booth, 22 tickets I bought. For all my Jan 6 brothers, this is abhorrent. This is horrible. We should not be being treated like this.
Okay, so let's kick down to this. I want to just play this really
This
quick.
is horrible. Jan 6.
So we also had Richard Barnett. He's another J6, was pardoned. He went down to pick up his credentials, and he got kicked out. Let's go ahead and play that.
Bear in mind, I am literally the middleman with limited information.
Okay.
For some reason, I don't know why they CPAC wants to deny you access to that.
Okay. I know why.
Okay.
And I understand it.
Okay. You do understand or don't understand?
I'm a J6er.
Okay.
And I have an unlimited, unconditional presidential pardon from President Trump, the United States President.
I've heard
okay?
that, yep.
Okay. So I went when he called me. I stood up.
Sure.
I spent all this time in prison for my country. Okay?
And I appreciate that.
Well, apparently y'all don't, because CPAC is steady every day kicking us out of CPAC.
Okay.
Just for being J6ers, I'm not the first one.
Okay.
So can you explain me why you would kick J6ers?
Okay, let's go ahead and go down to let's go down really quickly to A4 if we can.
By President Trump.
He wasn't the only one. He wasn't the only one, Jake. And then on top of him, Stewart Rhodes got kicked out. So let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and play this. This Stewart Rhodes shows up, and he is asked to leave. Go and play it.
So, Stu, tell me what's just happened, dude.
I was in line. I got media credentials, and I also got a general ticket. And I was in line for the general ticket, and they just pulled me out of line and said, I've been kicked out.
Why?
Illegal. They said legal.
Illegal.
Legal. Law. Like the legal department here advised them to kick me out.
Wow, because they just kicked out another J6er.
Yeah, I have no idea what the rationale is. I asked them, they didn't know. They just said legal. That's all they would say.
Okay.
So, that's okay. That goes.
Okay, so let's just go to this now. So CPAC makes a message. They put a message out there, and they said it is untrue that we are not allowing people to come to CPAC because of their involvement in J6. And in fact, CPAC has been a constant supporter of the persecuted community, and we support wholeheartedly President Trump's pardon of the J6 victims. The registration link is active, and tickets will be sold out very soon.
And then look at what I commented underneath that. Scroll down.
10 minutes after 10 minutes later, I was thrown out of CPAC while trying to pick up 22 tickets I purchased from my exhibit booth. What a shameful lie you have posted. I spent over 900 days in solitary confinement just to emerge with a pardon from Trump and then be dehumanized at your event. Jake, I'm going to let you get back to it. We'll pray for you afterwards. Obviously, I'll have you back on again. Man, I tell you what, you keep speaking that truth. I need to talk to you about what your platform looks like when you go to represent them and run for Senate down in Florida. Because if you want the Democrats and you want the Republicans and you want the people, then you have to speak a language that gives them back power to the people. And that means that you got to eliminate a lot opportunity droughts. You got to stop the school to prison pipeline that exists in all 50 states. You got to decloth or defrock the judges that are a massive problem in our country, and you got to stop allowing them to make indentured servants and slaves of the people. We got to get rid of property tax, make sure that our roads are free and clear, and come up with a tax system that allows for the bloatedness of the state and the federal government to go away. So, and I may run for governor of Colorado. I think I'm the only one that probably could win on the Republican ticket.
I love it. I support you, brother. You have my full endorsement. You have the official endorsement of the January 6th political prisoners, brother.
All right. Take care. God bless you, brother.
Love you, Joe. God bless you guys. Thank you so much. Freedom ain't free, guys. Fight, fight, fight.
We're going to go to a commercial break, or not break. We're going to just go to a commercial, just have a commercial. I'm going to take a deep breath. And then we're going to be joined by our next guest. And he really doesn't need much of a introduction, but I'll give it to you anyway. So Robert, I think I said Maness. I think I got it right. He's a 32-year Air Force combat vet. He's a 9/11 Pentagon survivor. He's a former U.S. Senate candidate and a founder of Iron Liberty Group. He's a lifelong record of providing dedicated service. And here's a guy that literally has served and stood up, has never backed down. I've watched many of his interviews. I've looked at many of the things that he's done, not just on the government side, but in business as well. Always respect someone that can move from serving their country into the business world and survive well. And he's done those things well. So we'll be right back after these messages, and we'll be joined by Colonel himself. Do you want to get profits from the world's most productive oil basin? Bloomberg calls the Permian Basin the world's most important growth engine for oil production. Now there's a way for everyday investors to collect monthly checks from an incredible oil hotspot. It's not a stock, and it's not an ETF. Instead, you can actually own royalty rights on over 380,000 acres of prime oil and gas fields. The best part? 95% of all income from this investment gets paid directly to investors like you. You can simply sit back and collect the royalty checks month after month. You can get started with just $25 through any brokerage account. Visit oilboom2025.com to learn more about the opportunity from the Oxford Club's chief income strategist, Mark Lichtenfeld. That's oilboom2025.com to learn how to start collecting Permian Basin oil royalties today.
Hi, I'm Joe, Supreme Leader of DCF Guns. What is DCF Guns, you ask? We're the best damn gun store and range in the universe. Do we have guns? We have all the guns. We got small guns. We got big guns. We even have beastly guns. We offer all types of training, and we have 5 ranges across our 3 locations. I'm a good shot. And of course, we have all types of ammo. We even have flamethrowers. Woo! We offer incredible membership opportunities, and members save even more on guns, ammo, and accessories. Military, both active and retired, and first responders get up to 40% off memberships. Come join the DCF family today, where we keep the range hot and the deals hotter. Hi. In every thread, in every stitch, Honor-Bound USA weaves the fabric of the American spirit. It's not just apparel, it's a testament to God, family, and country. At Honor-Bound USA, we're a family of patriots who put our faith, family, and America first. When you visit our website, you'll find a line of products that embody our commitment to pray, stand, speak, and act. As the official site for the Untamed podcast, all of our products proclaim speaking the truth with courage. We also have the powerful documentary from Professor David Clements, Let My People Go. Identify yourself as one of the few who are willing to stand for what they believe in. Join the Honor-Bound USA family today. Wear it as a badge of honor, commitment to the values that shape us, and a pledge to the bright future we will build together. Because when you're honor-bound, you're not just wearing a brand, you're embodying a lifestyle. I almost missed coming back on time. We were talking about the fact that I just got suspended from X again. I can't seem to keep myself out of trouble. And the reality of it is that I was questioning. All right, I'll just tell you. There's this guy that is on X that has never had a seat at the table anywhere. Nobody's ever asked him his opinion anywhere. And the irritating part about this, and before we bring in Colonel on, I have to address it. And I got kicked off because I basically said I've had enough. I have spent the better part of the last 4 years watching people slander me with impunity. And frankly, I'm done. So this guy, Bigger Truth, I didn't even know it existed. I didn't know this guy existed until a woman came out and said, "Hey, look, this guy was my ex, or they had some deal." And I was like, "Oh, that's nice. Why are you telling me this?" "Well, because he doesn't like you." Okay. But this guy comes out and he called me a handler for Tina Peters. Okay. So I'm not going to read the first part. I'll read the second part and just say this. First of all, I won't even read it. You can go look at it. If you want to look at it, you can go to Joe Untamed, at Joe Untamed on X. At Joe Altman X is kicked off right now. I can get it back if I decide I'm going to take down the post that I wrote.
and I'm not sure I will. But I basically I've been paying Tina. Nobody's ever paid me. I never asked to take any money from Tina's coffers that she has for legal expenses or anything else. I've never created a give, send, go for her. I've never done anything like that. I have, though, paid her every single month while she's been incarcerated, so she doesn't lose her house, so she doesn't lose her property, her life. And I have with absolute just vigor pursued the people that put her in jail to begin with. I've hired private investigators. I've looked into, the private dealings of people inside of Colorado, outside of Colorado. What are the connections? And so this guy wants to come out and he wants to call people from his mom's basement a deep state anything. I operate with this place where I've had an immense amount of patience for so long, but finally I've just had enough. I've had enough. I've already levied lawsuits against many of these news agencies and tech companies because the last 4 years, they've literally slandered me with impunity. And you could say, Joe, it's you signed up for it, and I did. But what I didn't sign up for is the ability for our own side to eat everything about who we are as people. So anyway, just if you see the bigger truth guy, I think his name's Scott McMahon, just let him know that the knock on the door, that'll be from me. With that said, I'm going to bring the Colonel in. He's been doing some great things, 32 years in the Air Force, served his country honorably, and was there on 9/11 at the Pentagon when it was hit on that fateful day. Colonel, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Joe. Good to be back and see you again.
All right, so you're doing some pretty crazy stuff. The election did not slow you down. You're doing some more stuff. You talked about a PAC that you have that helped get President Trump elected. What does your world look like right now?
Man, it's an amazing time to be alive, isn't it? Well, we're running our television show. It's live 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern to 4 p.m. Eastern on a little small network called Worldview Tube that's run by a guy named Brannon House.
Yeah.
Brannon set up Lindell TV for Mike and ran it for several years, and he's always had this little network. He invited my show on, so we do that, and just love talking to our audience. We simulcast it to an X space, so we have like a combination conservative talk radio, but live stream television embedded in it. So it's a lot of fun and everything, and talking about the issues and those kind of things. And of course, there's never a lack of issues to talk about. We did a show yesterday with Tim Young titled Exposing the Media's Lies, because now that Trump's back, the throttles are up on the lies, even though there's a constant flow there. When Trump's in office, the throttle goes up, and it's just unbelievable the amount of content material you have available.
It really doesn't end. It doesn't.
Yeah.
But you would think that people would lose their appetite for doing this because the number of people that are buying this rhetoric is shrinking dramatically.
Yeah, I don't think that Trump will save CNN this time. Last time he actually saved CNN, and they're trying to get him to save them again. They're trying their best at it, but he's not going to, because the people have figured it out. Thank God they've figured it out, so they're listening to people like you. And they watch, I have a small audience that watches my show, and the Worldview 2 network we're on is growing, and all the other independents that are out there, we're growing, and we're going to figure out at some point how to work together more and get to where there's more power in our numbers and completely overwhelm these liars, because they deserve it. They deserve to lose their revenue. They deserve to go out of business, and we deserve, because we've been working hard and telling the truth and the facts. Like you were just talking about Tina Peters there. And that's what we're going to continue to do with no fear. And that's what's important here, is that the American people that have stepped into the arena or the breach, we have no fear, because you know what? Most of us, we've seen things that should scare you before, and this ain't it. So we're doing that, and the Political Action Committee is called Gator PAC. If you want to help out, you can go to GatorPAC, GATORPAC.com. Make a donation at the big red contribution button at the top of the homepage. We'd appreciate your help. We raised a little bit over $2.8 million to help Donald Trump get reelected. Did a lot of investment in ballot chase operations in Pennsylvania with the PA Chase organization and the swing states with Charlie Kirk's outfit, Turning Point Action, where they were chasing ballots in those swing states, and it paid off. We were a small part of that. We're very proud of that and glad to have the president back in office because, he brings it real, doesn't he?
He brings it real, but everyone underneath him that brings it real seems to get the ban hammer. We talked about what's happening at CPAC. Yeah. I mean, you got to kind of hear a little bit at the tail end of what happened to Jake Lang. How is it that CPAC can sit up there and blatantly lie about what's really happening and with a straight face? And they're supposed to be on our side, Colonel. They're supposed to be on our side. Why? How are they saying they're on our side if is there a disconnect on their side? And if so, how come they haven't corrected it?
Well, when I first started running for office in 2013, I was running against two people. One was a Democrat named Mary Landrieu, and the other was a Republican that the Republican Party in the state named Bill Cassidy. You may recognize that name because Bill eventually won that race. And I spoke at CPAC that year. I got the opportunity to introduce Ollie North. And I tried to go back the following years as a speaker, and they wouldn't let me. Well, I realized that their group called the ACU that does scoring on politicians, it actually scored Bill Cassidy at a 97% conservative, if I remember correctly, somewhere in the mid to high 90s anyway. And that's when I realized that, well, maybe this isn't exactly conservative because this Cassidy guy, he just tried to tank Bobby Kennedy's nomination. He voted to convict Donald Trump in the second sham impeachment, which was even more of a sham than the first one was. And the people in his state hate him, but the donors love him, and they're going to try to get him reelected again. Anyway, the ACU is behind CPAC, the slaps and all that. And I have no ill will towards any of those folks. I think that CPAC has a good value to it still. I don't think as many people go to it as they did back in those days, from what I understand. And I haven't been back in a while, but I will go when I get the opportunity, if the opportunity arises. I just couldn't do it this year. But what I noticed with Jake and those guys is that Bannon got woke up about that somehow because he started pulling them up into a microphone this morning on his show. I try to monitor that show as I'm prepping for my own. And so good on Steve because he has a relationship with the Schlaps, and I think that's turned it around. Hopefully they're going to let all those guys back in. Stewart Rhodes is one of the smartest people in the America First movement that I've ever met and had a chance to have a conversation with. And he didn't deserve what happened to him.
I would put Stewart Rhodes up against Elon Musk. The guy is incredibly intelligent. Now his forte is not technology, but his forte is law. His forte is, and he's got probably one of the sweetest dispositions you'd ever find. So I agree with you.
Yeah, I got to meet him in the spring of the year of 2021 after all that stuff happened, and he sat down with me and told me the whole story from his perspective. And the story that was told in court was the truth that I saw, and nothing that I heard should have led to even a trial. It should have, those concerns should have been dismissed out of hand by a competent prosecutor. And the guy ends up with what? I don't know how long the sentence was, but it was close to 20 years for a trumped up charge. It's just crazy. I'm glad that the president pardoned and commuted those guys' sentences, and I hope everybody eventually, even the commuted sentences, end up getting a pardon because no matter what people did that day, the entire judicial system of the United States federal government was used to crush them, crush their families, crush their income. Just the punishment was the process. Even for the guys that got convicted and sent to prison and everything, it's still the process is the punishment. I mean, we still have, I think his name's Jeremy Brown, special forces guy that wasn't even there, that is still in prison because they were mad at him because he wouldn't be a confidential human source for them when the FBI came to ask him about it. So we've still got some folks that we got to get out. And I'm glad to see CPAC's changing their minds, at least in some cases. I hope they let them all come back in because, those folks they're just solid Americans that wanted to do what was right for their country, to be honest with you. And even if there were some feds or CIs or CHSs or agents in there for the ones that got caught up in the system. At least in some cases, they were treated poorly too.
Okay, so let me ask you. I mean, first of all, I need to tell you this. I have 3 labs. One of them is Miko, which means hunting goddess, and she is a bird hunter to no end. I have 2 other yellow labs that are named Ollie and Reagan, Oliver North, Ronald Reagan. So I've adopted this. I have a great respect and admiration for Oliver North. I studied him incessantly about what happened during his career, what happened during the Iran-Contra era, and frankly, it's a lost art of how he was able and what he was able to do in order to protect not just U.S. interests but the people on the ground there. So I have to tell you, it's you start talking about politics from the perspective of what it used to be, and it used to be a dirty game. But how you played the dirty game always resulted in interest being elevated for the people, and I think he brought a certain amount of dignity and respect back to it. It didn't last very long, obviously, after Reagan went out of office. So just a little, food for thought on that side.
Yeah. Back when, he was around back when America's politicians, no matter what their political party, tried to look out for our national interest. And if we needed to risk our lives of our kids, it was in our vital national interest, or what we thought it was. I mean, everybody was like that. I was proud to introduce Ollie at CPAC in 2013 when I got the chance to do it. That was the year that Obama drew the red line, and then it became a pink line. And I think I used that line, and Ollie did too in his speech that day. But yeah, I agree with you. It's a totally different world now, though, because we have most of these politicians on both sides of the aisle are not working in the interest of the United States of America. They're working in their own interest. Is what it looks like.
Colonel, they're not intelligent. They have no competence, and they've been actively sought because they lack intelligence and they lack competence. And to a large degree, they're captured. So you have people that have propensities to do things that were captured long ago. I mean, look, and frankly, I'm not a fan of the entire system because the idea is you can see dead people, and I see dead people. And all the time that I spent overseas and doing things that was never related to or working for the U.S. government, I remember seeing things that I would come home and hear and see, and I would be there, and it would be the complete opposite. It's as if we were lying to the American people and pushing things on the American people that they knew 100% weren't true, only to secure interest for individual people in our country. So, this corruption that we're uncovering right now is deep-seated. And so cutting it out is going to be very difficult because there's a lot of people that have benefited for a long time. And these politicians have really betrayed the American people in every way. So,
it's much worse than you and I even think. And I stepped into the political arena because I saw the corruption and the Republicans and Democrats both getting elected on issues and then going to Washington, D.C. and doing the exact opposite, quite frankly. And quite often, but I realized very quickly that I was not welcome, no matter how much time and service to the United States of America I had. I was either too smart or just too damn hard-headed, which is what my wife says, too stubborn and hard-headed, and they knew that they couldn't control me.
Yeah, well, I don't mind connecting with people and having unified interests, and you leave the people behind and you don't give them a voice and you make them invisible, that I have the issue with. Yeah. Speaking of that, Mitch McConnell has just said he will not seek re-election. I don't even know if he's the one that actually put that out there, because the guy can't complete 2 sentences. He looks more and more a much more feeble Biden in many respects. What's your reaction to the fact that he is not seeking re-election?
I'm ecstatic about it. Should have been gone long ago. Our system wasn't designed to have people serve for from birth till death in a political office, especially at the end of their lives when they're not capable of making a decision. One of the worst things that happened to my country and your country is Joe Biden's administration that was foisted upon us, I'm sure illegally. I don't give a damn what kind of evidence that people say they didn't have or did have or whatever. There's no way in hell that Joe Biden got 81 million votes in the popular vote. It just didn't happen, and we all know it. Don't don't piss on my shoe and tell me it's raining because I'm smart enough to know better. And that's why I think that we should have some type of process to get these people out of office when we start seeing that. We do for the presidency, but we were let down by the folks operating the system because they wanted to keep their power as long as they could so they could do the USAID thing, which is a Republican and Democrat system that is enabling them to get money back into their families, into their companies, into their stock market, whatever you name it. That's what's enabling them, or paying for their house payment, whatever it is. And when you look at the IRI organization and the Democrat mirror organization of that under the National Endowment for Democracy in the Data Republicans research charts that she puts out, it's very obvious. Tom Cotton's the chair of the IRI. It's International Republican Institute. And they have nearly the identical amount of federal funds, tax dollars, that go into their coffers of around $136 million a year in both the Democrat and Republican side of that organization. And they're controlling what gets put out, and they're controlling where the dollars go. And it's just absolute corruption. And I believe that's how the establishment uniparty has been able to hold on to control because they're funneling money to candidates that get all the money, and candidates like you and me that they don't want to be able to raise money and win end up getting pushed to the back, or they cut funding off, or whatever it is that you want to do. I mean, I've been hit in the face many times like you have in the political arena. I don't really care, but they use that to try to, keep you from winning. And that's a system I believe that we've been knowing about, but not been able to put your finger on it for a long, long time. But now we can see it, and it's pretty ugly.
Yeah. So I'm trying to square all the things that are happening all at the same time. I see that there's a lot of progress being made with President Trump and what Doge is getting ready to do. They're getting ready to audit the Department of Defense, which should be very interesting given the amount of blow in that particular arena by itself. There's estimates that 50% of the money that goes out is actually not spent on any products. It's actually spent propping up things that were supposed to be paid for on 3-4 years back. So there's and by the way, that what I just said to you, that's all rumors. Those are all rumors within the DoD. It's like the underlying joke. And so that could that be one of the biggest problems that they face today is it's not just the sheer amount of money, but it's the mismanagement and the entire infrastructure of our government apparatus collectively.
Oh, absolutely. In the Department of Defense, I tweeted out right away, as soon as you think USAID is bad, or HHS or Medicare or any of those, wait till we get to DOD. And look, the budget's at nearly $1 trillion. I've only been out of the military since late 2011. Let's call it 2012. So 13 years now, and the budget's gone from $500 billion to $1 trillion. Look, we were operating in Afghanistan and Iraq, and in those terms, that's not that expensive to do that. And we were doing regular research and development that's not been muscled up to increase it or anything when I left. So something's going on with it. We know there's corruption in that. There's too many dollars floating around and flying in and out because we know they can't even pass an audit 7 or 8 times in a row now. We can't pass an audit in the Department of Defense. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing when Doge gets to it, if they're able to actually do what they've been doing in the other organizations. And that's the part that I'm skeptical about, because it's a vast array of accounting controls and acquisition controls and different layers of people that are not necessarily in favor of being found out. Let's put it that way. And it's going to be real interesting. It should be a bloodbath. And Pete Hegseth, who is reported, signed a memo in the last couple of days that said cut the defense budget by 40% over the next so many years at 8% a year. Do it 8% a year. That should be entirely doable because we're spending way too much. I mean, just look at what we spend compared to even China. And China, I will acknowledge, is an adversary, is at war with us non-kinetically right now. They've declared it many years ago, and they're doing everything they can to overcome us. But their defense budget's still not even half of what we spend.
Well, they don't need a defense budget if they can buy out all the politicians. There's only a roughly 7,500 elected positions in this country. If they could get a firm control over half of those, then they don't have to literally fire one bullet. And frankly, they don't want to be on our shores because behind every door could be a gun and 100,000 rounds. So with that said, I don't. The problem is that the same way that we talk about China, and we should talk about this because this will be a fascinating conversation from someone that spent over 30 years in military service and understands kind of the global threat environment. But Colonel, I spent 6 years meeting with people that you would call terrorists. I had many times call the OFAC, Office of Foreign Asset Control, check things with the State Department to make sure I wasn't stepping over any lines, and meet with people and get on the ground information that showed me that people like Susan Rice, they went to the UN and said Sudan is a terrorist nation, was lying. I did a Darfurian peace agreement. They had the Darfurian peace agreement, the comprehensive peace agreement, and the East Peace Agreement in this vote to split the country in half. And it was along the lines of this Abyei district, which is this oil-rich, resource-rich environment. Mm-hmm. But when I went there to prove that, hey, that there were some issues in that environment. I'm using this specifically. And the more and more I dug into it, the more and more it turns out that it was 100% fabricated by the United States. So the same way that we say that China is a real problem for us and is at war with us, I'm just putting it out there so that you understand that I'm not a stupid man. I did analysis. My job was to figure out whether or not it was or was not true. And it turns out it was a big lie. So the same way they see us as a threat and that we're attacking them, it's hard to ignore the fact that the United States, this apparatus, call it the CIA, call it whatever you want, has gone into foreign countries, disavowed the sovereignty of those nations, and has done real damage, even what you're seeing happen in Ukraine.
Oh, yeah. We're responsible, I think, through the CIA and the USAID and the Victoria Nulands of the world for what's happening in Ukraine today. That's right on our doorstep. And I don't disagree with you at all. But when we're spending $1 trillion a year and the Chinese can outbuild us in, let's just say, merchant marine ships, 340 ships to 1 in a year, and they're not spending even half of what we spend on their defense budget, and all of their ships have a naval combat capability built into them, by the way, and are required to be Chinese Navy standards, whether it's a merchant marine ship or not, and we can't even build one to their 340, something's wrong in that budget. And, look, the things have changed since I left the military, especially the last 5 years. We've got 70,000 unvetted Afghan refugees in this country. We've got some people even say there's 100,000 Chinese military-age males that have come across the southern border and in through various ways through the CBP One app under the Biden administration. What are they doing here? The Chinese don't just let people leave. Some, yeah, probably. But most of the time they're having to escape, and they don't let people escape in those kind of numbers either. So there's some intelligence work that needs to be done from a realistic perspective, where we get all the BS out of it, the CIA out of it, the USAID out of it, and actually get, hopefully Tulsi Gabbard will get control of the Directorship of National Intelligence and put these people back to work for us so we can look at some of these concerns, because I'll be honest with you, I don't know. And we should know what's going on in our own country. And I think the threat inside the borders of the United States of America from China, from the Islamists, that's much higher than it is from around the world and outside the border.
Yeah. So with that said, I've seen the CIA individually fund and push, individual wars. And we look at Ukraine and the announcement in 2014 that they finally said, okay, we're going to have to admit that we have a standing here. Same year, coincidentally, you had the Maidan coup. and that you had the change from Yanukovych to Porokovich. They had this kind of break in. By the way, I'm a complete geek, but I've also been there. So it's not like I'm talking from a position that I didn't travel and understand and meet with and be involved and have a seat at many tables. But my issue with going through this exercise is that when you talk about institutional rot and what Doge is digging into, we still are we're 30 days in and we've yet to hold any one person responsible. Talk about Samantha Power at USAID. Why isn't she under investigation? Why isn't she under indictment? It is not hard to see it, right? And you can trace that all the way back to what she did in Guatemala, and the fact that there's a president in Guatemala from the Semilla party that literally is closely tied to George Soros, who was placed in that position using fraudulent elections. And so these are all things that we should be able to see, Colonel. I mean, I'm frustrated by the fact that as we bring in and turn off the spigot, when and where are we going to see the first person, the second person, the third person be held accountable for the behavior and the things that they've done, not just to the American people, but to many people around the world go?
Yeah, and the accountability piece of it is what we're all looking for, too. I mean, your concern is spot on, Joe. I work with the military folks that were kicked out or had to leave the military over the vaccine mandate, which is now known to be an unlawful order, but it was energetically enforced by senior officers down to mid-level officers in command positions and senior NCOs, not just enforced, but enforced in a way that took their rights away that had been put in law, even extra to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, but it even put in laws like the Religious Restoration Act, and they still ignored the law, and nobody's being held accountable yet. Now, Donald Trump said he was going to fire him, but nobody's been fired. It appears that once you get past layer 3 on the appointment level, that a lot of Beltway insiders, people that are what we call them, Beltway creatures, swamp guys, Beltway bandits, those kind of folks are getting put into those third level down leadership positions, and they're gonna stop any accountability. And we've got to hold people accountable across the board. Why isn't Victoria Nuland being talked about being investigated yet? Why isn't John Bolton being talked about being investigated yet? Why isn't I would like to see John McCain and Lindsey Graham and Hillary Clinton all investigated from a prosecutorial and a criminal perspective.
You better be careful.
Because I know.
Look behind you. You better look. It's 130 body count. You might be 31.
I know, but it's got to be done. If we don't hold these people, Mark Milley needs to be recalled to active duty and put through the court-martial process because he violated the Uniform Code of Military Justice at least 3 times from what I can see. So if I have those accusations, they need to be fully investigated inside a process that's not controlled by people that Mark Milley was mentoring to become general officers, which are in those positions right now, and admirals. So we've got to get this done. And Donald Trump's the only guy we have. Luckily, he picked J.D. Vance. I think Vance will back him up on it. But he needs to pick more people from outside the Beltway and put them in positions of power to get this done, or it won't get done. And if that won't get done, then things like the recruiting problem to the U.S. military, this bump that Pete Hegseth's getting right now, that'll evaporate very quickly, and we'll be back to where we were at a few months ago.
Okay, the military has adopted, and some of the people that are SEALs and people that are in special forces and work within, whether you're talking about frogmen or Green Beret, it doesn't matter. Most of those men read a lot. And one of the things they read is The Art of War. They need to know that you can't have a single point of failure. Most military operations are run through the standpoint of primary and secondary. So you have primary targets, secondary targets, primary team, secondary team, so that the job and the mission always is completed. Mm-hmm. For a guy that never served in the military, I shouldn't know as much stuff as I know, but I spent a lot of time having conversations and reading about all of this stuff and making sure, and I was in the middle of it. So, So I don't think what I'm saying to you is foreign. As we look at, and I want to bring this up because I think it's super important. As we look at the apparatuses that we have collectively, when we look at, how do we plan things out? You said something really interesting, and I'm sorry I wasn't going to ask this question, but now I have to. You're like, President Trump is the only one that can get this done. Being a military man, 32 years, I know that as you said it, your mind probably went right to the back of that's singular in mission. That's a single point of failure. Holy shit, I can't believe I said it. Right? So, I mean, to a certain degree, you can't spend 32 years in the military, get to the level that you got, and not have that feeling when you say it. Your instincts have to run towards that. So who's behind him, Colonel? Who's behind him? And frankly, I think the American people need to know that.
I mean, who the bench? Is that your question? Who's the bench? Well, I immediately followed it up with thank God he picked J.D. Vance, because I supported J.D. Vance in his Senate primary in 2022 and was one of the people that got Donald Trump to actually back him so he would win. And we do have J.D. Vance there, and I think he's not at the exact same level as Donald Trump is, but he's pretty damn close, and he's on it too. So we do have some backup there, and I did bring him up immediately after I said that. But you're right. Look, Green Berets and SEALs aren't the only ones that read the art of war and study it. Those of us that have been in the military our entire professional lives are fully versed in planning and executing military operations, whether we're bomber guys or like I was when I was enlisted, an explosive ordnance disposal guy, or a Green Beret or a SEAL. But yes, we do have backups. We always have different, very layered courses of action so that we have something to fall back on if the primary mission comes to mission failure and those kind of things. But Donald Trump is a unique individual. He's the only person that could have won this election, this re-election, after what he went through. And thank God he picked J.D. Vance. But I'm very concerned about the rest of the bench. So far, Rubio's doing great as a Secretary of State so far, but he's a neocon.
Your article, let's pull up that article, because this is really interesting. I really want to talk about this, and I could talk to you for hours like this, because I read your article and I go, this is spot on, except for we're talking about Rubio.
I know.
so let me read just this excerpt in this, because I think it's important. And you basically said, Rubio to Latin America, no more U.S. dollars for lawfare. And it gives me hope. And then I say Rubio, and then I see what Rubio did when he was in Guatemala. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But in the inauguration speech, this is your writing. In the inauguration speech, President Trump promised never again will the immense power of the state be weaponized to persecute political opponents. And within this first 24 hours in office, he delivered. The executive order titled Ending the Weaponization of the Federal Government directed his new administration to review the activities of all federal agencies and ensure that federal programs were reoriented to follow the rule of law instead of inflicting political pain. Did not happen with Tina Peters, by the way. I just want to put that out. And that was run by Merrick Garland. And so that's my little infomercial. This is a critical step by the administration, must set its gaze on how Biden's lawfare and corruption extends far beyond our borders and have been exported internationally as well. Foreign assistance managed by the State Department is ground zero. And you go on to talk about what's happened and some of the $1.5 billion appropriated to foreign assistance, the INL, which you've talked about just previously, and some of the work that he did. And you talk about Colombia and things like that. Anyway, we'll put this in the notes. I don't have time to read the whole thing. Maybe you can summarize it for me. But here's my problem. Rubio went in, gave lip service, and reinforced in his visit down to South and Central America about 50% of the time the same radical ideologies that replaced him. And he was standing up the same State Department mandates by Blinken and Samantha Power through USAID, and standing as interference in countries like Guatemala for sex trafficking that did happen by the hundreds of thousands out of Guatemala, and the institutional corruption, and sided with someone who is 100% in bed, president of Guatemala, with George Soros and some really, really, really bad people. How do you square that peg? Because I'm not seeing it.
Oh, you can't square it. That's why I've said, the bench is critically important that we continue to develop this bench. And when you have a Rubio as Secretary of State under Donald Trump, Trump may be able to keep him under control so far, so good. But the ties that he has to that web that we've been talking about, the Victoria Newlands, the John Boltons, the what you just talked about in Guatemala, all of that makes him suspect. And who are the second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth layers of appointees below him? Who are those people? Where are they at? Where are they coming from? Are they Beltway bandits, or are they competent professionals like you, for instance, coming from that are willing to come and serve for a limited period of time and get things back on track because they can be trusted with not just Donald Trump's policies, but with the policies that he's implementing on behalf of us, the American people, instead of on behalf of the damn bureaucracy, which is where Marco Rubio really has been serving as part of the Gang of Eight. I mean, all of those are well-founded concerns and have to remain concerns because the proof's in the pudding, Joe, right? You can tell me all you want what you're going to do, but until you actually take an action that I can confirm that you are implementing what you've been told to do, then I'm not going to believe you. The old saying that don't listen to what a politician says, watch what he or she does in reality, and that's where the truth will come. So we've got to stay on him, and we've got to watch him. So far, I've been pleasantly surprised. Obviously, I wrote the article. Yeah, it got it out there.
But admonishment time, Colonel. It's admonishment time. Like you can't score 20 points and lose by 30 because and let players that are sabotaging it also say, well, I had the best stats. You can't do well in 3 countries and destroy 5, right? And my issue with Rubio and my issue with the American people specifically, and most of the government, is that they don't have the institutional knowledge. How is it that I have more knowledge and I have more access than Marco Rubio does? How is it that I know more and I have more access to information and I was able to walk things in to certain people and say, look, you have to look underneath and then I get told, Joe, you have to go register with FARA, right? As a foreign agent. That is the Foreign Agent Registration Act. So you can't work for these people. So I'm having to go through all these processes and steps just to stop the State Department from being dumbasses. And that's really what's happening. Yeah. And so I'm yes, I would literally give up a ton to help President Trump in an honorable mission. I always say that I have no allegiances. I have no permanent allegiances. I have permanent ideals. President Trump is a permanent ideal person, and he has had allegiances that he's let fall and falter and go away very gracefully, by the way. That he did so because of the fact that they did not only did they not align with him, but he saw that their behaviors did not match what they were speaking.
Yeah, and he's the type of individual that rises to the top, and he's had to change his mind on some things to get to a point where I can comfortably say, he's for me, he's for Americans, he's not for the bureaucracy or for the corporations. Although he does appoint some people that give me pause for concern. I'm concerned about Rubio, like you are. Now Rubio can also have a change of heart, and maybe Donald Trump's the man that's able to do that for him. But man, we got to watch that close because he just hasn't stepped up to that level where I could say, yeah, I could trust that guy like I trust Mr. Trump. And again, even with Mr. Trump, it's a trust but verify thing. I mean, he's made some bad calls. He'll never admit it. I wouldn't ask him to, but he's made some bad calls on personnel. He actually did admit it from his first administration. So we've got to stay attentive to that. And whether we go into the administration or work on the outside of the administration, we always have to be willing to let the boss know, hey, this is not working out the way you thought it was going to. From what we can tell, we need to tell you some truth. And I think Trump does put people around him, contrary to the reporting that you see from the leftists and the rhinos and stuff, that will tell him the truth. And I think he values that.
Yeah, I think look, I always try to say that I don't have all the information in the room for why decisions are made, but I have a vast majority of it on things that I talk intelligently about, because I make sure that I don't pick it up from the Washington Post or Washington Times. I'll pick up the phone, right? I always like to say, I'll show you this. I have cell phones. I'm grabbing my bag real quick because it's sitting next to my desk. And I have these. So I have to have conversations with certain people, and I'm letting everybody know my secret, and it's okay because I'm a tech guy. I promise you, if I make a phone call, you can't trace it. But in order to have conversations with people, I've learned that you have to have conversations in very strategic ways in order to gather information that allows for you to stand on the right side of things, right? And because I don't trust my government, the government that you worked for 32 years, and I think you probably have a healthy dose of distrust as well. It's not that there aren't really good people in it, because I think that's the only thing that's keeping the wheels on the bus. It's the fact that we can have a bad person like Rubio in certain aspects and pressure him to do the right thing because there's enough light on him that he doesn't have a choice, right?
Yeah.
He can't just come out against President Trump. Now, with that said, you've read The Art of the War. You've read all of these books. You've been involved in combat. Frankly, it's a blessing that you're still here with us with everything being at the Pentagon on 9/11. But you have to admit that because of this idea that people are muled along with the ideals that President Trump recommends or represents, that's popular with the people, you have an opportunity for the Brutus mentality to occur. The stabbing of Caesar, the stabbing of, and it doesn't need to be fatal by any means for it to be effective. But because of how many things are moving along at the same time, I look at it from the perspective of how do you protect the house, given the number of opportunities for that failure to occur. We saw it when he was shot in the ear. Grace of God, he was saved. But Colonel, you know as well as I do, that there has to be a hyper awareness that occurs that tells us, okay, what's next? We only have 3.5, 4 years left with President Trump. And you say, JD Vance, I agree with you. I think he's ridiculously smart. But what comes next for what I see as a still largely controlled environment where there's not a lot of, there's just, the bench is not only not there, but there is no vision, no strategic plan that draws us to a conclusion where we have some stability past the next 2 or 4 years.
Yeah, I share your concern, and I don't trust this government. I don't know that I trusted the government when I was in the military, let alone trust it now. But I have more of a distrust for the government now than probably my ancestor that decided to fight in the American Revolution had for his. Quite honestly, and it's founded. It's well-founded distrust, and we as Americans, that is one of our basic values anyway, and we should embrace it because you're right. I mean, what is the plan for? Look, Trump's going to be lame duck. He's unique, so he may not be lame duck until like the last 3 months of this term, but he's going to be gone soon. I don't think anybody's going to pull some miracle rabbit out of the hat and make it to where he can legally run for office again and get reelected. And I don't know that that's a good idea anyway. The FDR experience, we are still living with crap outcomes from the FDR experience that we shouldn't be living with as the United States of America. So I don't know that that's a good outcome anyway. One of the things that you bring this up, but in the broader sense, man, can't we find 535 people that can win and go into Congress and a group of people that can become presidents of the United States and become Supreme Court judges? Can't we find that cohort of 1,000 people out of a country of 320 million in each generation that they're the ones that can carry this ball for our grandchildren? I think we can. I mean, those numbers are doable, but do we have a strategy? Do we have a well backed cohort of people like you, like me, like Vance, like Trump, that can lean into this and organize enough to where we can set this up and it become generational again, like it was up until the early 20th century, in my opinion. Maybe 1860 would be a better timeline to put line to put on the timeline. But we can get back to that. But it's where do we find those people today that are living, breathing adults that have the background that can fall in on this and be supported enough by funding and by people that have some power in the government, so that we can grow it and cultivate it and eventually get that back into a generational way to do it. And quite honestly, I don't have any answers for that, but I do have the same concerns that you do.
Yeah, well, I
Keeps
think
me awake at night.
It keeps me. I was up till 2:00 in the morning yesterday, just kind of walking through it, and I have this. The introspective people are the people that should be in government. People that actually look at themselves longer than other people look at them. Right. So they always say, true, false, nil. Is this true? Could this be true about myself? That gives you a healthy amount of skepticism. It also gives you a healthy amount of humility. I think President Trump has both. He just doesn't. He can recognize the things that he does wrong, and he doesn't necessarily have to articulate it because he already recognizes that he needs to make a course correction, and he's not going to. He is not going to cater to the radical elements that are going to push him into a hole. Now, I would rather just tell people that I screwed up and let them play with it, right? But he's been very effective in kind of making this course correction, especially when it relates to COVID and what happened during 2020 and 2021, and some of the mandates that he put forward. Colonel, I want to have you back on because I'd like to actually do a deep dive as it relates to foreign policy, some of the things that we've done in the Middle East. I'd like to have a long form conversation with you about some of the policy decisions that we've had and made, not just in the Middle East, but in Africa, parts of Eastern Europe, and really look at, how do we work those problems? I think everything you've said about, who needs to run for office and how we build that, I call it a fraternity, but a fraternity, by the way, that's willing to hold each other accountable, because iron is iron. And we don't have that now. You're not allowed to talk badly about this person, even though badly is criticizing something that we all know is BS, right? Such as what's happening with CPAC. So how can people find you, and how can people stay connected to you? And I'll definitely follow you as well, although I just got kicked off X for another 12 hours.
You can find me at robmaness.com. I'm on Facebook at @COL Rob Maness, and on X and all the other social medias, it's just at Rob Maness, ROBMANESS. We do my show broadcast live to all the platforms I can broadcast live to, like it goes to my fans on Facebook, on X. I do an audio space simulcast with the show on X. So if you're not on X, get on X, and you can come ask questions. I let people ask questions during my show of my guests and those kind of things. So we have a great time. And Getter, X, Social, Truth Social, all of them at Rob Maness.
All right. Hey, Rob, I really appreciate you. We'll pray for you after the show. I thank you for your commitment. I thank you for your service for 32 years and the service that you continue to push forward. I do want to say this, a little healthy plug for President Trump and members of his administration. At least one of you guys is listening to this show. I know, because I keep getting calls from people. It's like, Joe, this is a great idea. Thanks for bringing it up 3 days ago. Okay, so the one thing is that I think that Colonel Maness will make a great ambassador. I'm just going to put it out there. There's some countries that you could put him in that I think he could do some good in. So that's a healthy plug, just a plug.
Well, thank you. And thanks for supporting Tina Peters, man. That's a case that I'm I'm tracking on it. And I just, I wish that Trump had more pardon power, because I think he would pardon her if he had the pardon power to do it.
Well,
but I hope he's got DOJ working on something.
Yeah, he has an immense amount of power actually to reach in based on his executive order. And because he can actually draw a collective line from Merrick Garland on conversations and even emails with the Attorney General in Colorado and the DA, who was made certain promises and conditions, as well as the judge in this case, who is a deviant. I mean, he literally is a deviant. There are some things that he can do. He has superseding power And hopefully the DOJ is working on those, and they're going to make her a priority because, frankly, I can't imagine any other person being as impactful to the reelection and uncovering what happened in the election as Tina Peters.
I agree. Well, thank you so much, Joe.
Colonel, I appreciate you coming on. God bless you, and I'll have you on again.
God bless.
We got a couple more things that I want to go over. The Colonel is a wealth of information. I didn't get to ask him some of the questions that I wanted to ask him related to some of the work that he's done globally. But I promise that I will have that conversation again, and we'll dig further into his organization. I did want to just a healthy plug for that organization that he has that I think you guys should know about. He has the PAC. What is wrong with my computer? But he also has an organization called the Iron Liberty Group. So just we'll get that piece on there and make sure that we can. You can go to his website robmaness.com, and that's more for the audio version that is going to be listening to this as well on Apple, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and more. All right, I'm going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, it'll be a really quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the things at CPAC that were relevant. The problem with things that are bad is that, or organizations that are rotted, is you can still have some good. You can still have some fruit that comes out of it. And one of those fruitful things was JD Vance speaking at CPAC. So right up next.
Hi, I'm Joe, Supreme Leader of DCF Guns. What is DCF Guns, you ask? We're the best damn gun store and range in the universe. Do we have guns? We have all the guns. We got small guns. We got big guns. We even have beastly guns. We offer all types of training, and we have 5 ranges across our 3 locations. I'm a good shot. And of course, we have all types of ammo. We even have flamethrowers! Woo! We offer incredible membership opportunities, and members save even more on guns, ammo, and accessories. Military, both active and retired, and first responders get up to 40% off memberships. Come join the DCF family today, where we keep the range hot and the deals hotter. It's hot.
Free Tina Peters ones that I want. Okay. We've got quite a bit of stuff that I want to go over still with you. I know I went long. I've been going long pretty much every day. I've been giving you an extra hour. So here's what I'm going to ask from you for the people that are listening. 1, you got to become a supporter. And there's been things that says, hey, I don't listen to the commercials. We're going to be adding in people that I think are relevant to what you need as people. I don't ask that you buy anything that you would never normally buy anyway. But if you can replace some of the things that you're doing with some of the products that we're offering, that allows for us to have advertising revenue to be able to employ the people that we employ on the team and really just start to reach bigger and more audiences. Now, right now, I know that we're on the BEK network, so shout out to the BEK network, and that we're doing some things that are pretty outside the norm, right? We're going to be having things that we do to meet with people that are on the left. And some people say, well, I don't want to listen to those particular interviews. Here's what I will tell you. If we only talk to people that we agree with, we are likely to have a very tilted view of the world. And the reason why I say that is because when I came back from the Middle East and I went back and forth, when I first went there, I hated Arabs. I hated them. The whole idea of 9/11 weighed heavily on my soul. And I sat in rooms and got to have conversations with people and work problems that I had no business working. I had no reason to be in those rooms. And people would always say to me the same thing that I just said before. When you have intelligence and you have competence and you put those two things together, people recognize it very quickly. And that's what I mean when I said you could see dead people. President Trump sees dead people. I see dead people. There are people that see dead people. And that's the ability to represent the fact that you can not only speak about it, but you can do it. You can turn the things that you can that visually create, and you can turn them into something that can actually bear fruit. And when we start looking at, this keeps calling me. We start looking at the reality behind what is happening in our country, and we start looking at the things that we create as far as a vision. Like this is like, I'm pro-life. Well, I'm pro-life. I'm 100,000 billion% pro-life. I wish that we could eliminate abortions completely. I truly believe that if we got rid of it, man, that the Black community by itself would flourish, because it would force us into a place where we had to recognize that we couldn't create this school to prison pipeline and have this erosion or degradation of education in those environments. But I'm pro-life and I paid for an abortion. I have 2 beautiful kids. So we don't really know. And yes, I'm more open with it than I think most people are. I'm way more open with it than most people are. I'm willing to talk about you. You can ask me any questions. I will give it all to you. At the same time, I have to recognize that we can't be hypocrites in our heart. We can't walk over here and say, okay, we're listening to porn and doing all this stuff, and then say over here, I don't want to traffic women and children. Well, holy shit, what do you think that the porn you're actually watching is contributing to? You think that they just that doesn't lead to that's not a gateway to the things that are happening over here to innocent women and children? It is 1,000%. So you can't eat of the poisonous tree and then convict the poisonous tree. And so I want to have a conversation with communities that allow for us to not be the arbiter of reality, but to check the arbiter of reality. ABITER of reality. And it's not going to be popular, but we do have to step away from this idea that we are the ones that contain and have and speak 100% truth, because it's not true. There's a little bit of truth in everything that some of the people on the left say. When they talk about institutional racism inside the inner city, how could you deny it? I don't see many white people riding around in a Mercedes-Benz with tinted, even to take that with non-tinted out windows, that are rolling down the road with a tie on, getting pulled over. But I mean, if you're Black and you drive down the road and I can hear you before I see you, and you got tinted windows and you're leaning back in the car and it looks like you have a self-drive Mercedes and there's nobody in the passenger seat, you're getting pulled over. It's the reality of the system. It is a system that has open biases. And so why not have a conversation about it, how we can work that problem? Or is that just a symptom that we keep looking to and they use as a thing to beat you with? This is why people don't want me to have a voice. This is why, because I'm willing to have these conversations and I'm willing to take on the biggest, the baddest. I'm willing to take on the grifting class. I'm willing to call people out for what they are. I'm willing to have the conversation with Jake about Steve Bannon literally going around him and calling his boss because he doesn't have the courage to stand up and call Jake himself. Look, I got no love lost for a guy that literally shit on me when I was at the Lindell Network. I don't. And yet, people listen to this talking head. Okay, go listen to it. Well, people are propped up. People are given an opportunity to speak, and there are other people that aren't. Well, put me on a panel and sit me next to 3 or 4 or 5 of these guys. And as I was just talking to Apollo in the break, I would eat their effing lunch. Not because I can walk around and eloquently say, all right, hey, Psalms 81, 2, 3, and 4. Not because I will go and grab some book and say, oh, if I could just read a little excerpt from this book, but because I do understand the strategies that people push in front of people. And I do understand what the difference is between a problem and a symptom to that problem. And boy, can I sniff out bullshit quicker than you know what. That is what they fear. And that is why other people that were in these circles decided that, hey, we can't have Joe in here. He's dangerous. You can recognize danger by the ability to see things that other people want to say but don't want to say, because they're afraid that if they say it, it'll lead to ostracization in that environment. And the reason why I stuck around for so long and did the things that I did was really simple. I have a high degree of competence. I'm willing to sit in the corner and not say a word until I finally get to the point where I've had enough of the bullshit. I'm willing to get on a ship that I know is absolutely sinking. I will plug those holes. I will solve those problems as long as it leads to mission critical aspects of what we need to accomplish getting done. And in this case, it was President Trump becoming the president of the United States for the second time and duly elected for the third time. Those are the things that I'm willing to do. I'm willing to tolerate the stink of people like Dennis Montgomery and Conan Hayes and many, many others, while just recognizing that as soon as it was done and President Trump got into office, I had done my part. I had spent 4 years getting absolutely beat to death, only to recognize that the apparatus that we have on the right is just as rotted as it is on the left. And nobody wants to talk about it. So I do. So over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to look into different parts of the world. I'm going to look at different aspects of how do we actually work the problem for people that don't look like you and I, that don't think like you and I, and get to the basic principle of how do I remove that stick in them that is infected while they're sitting over here saying it's the conservatives over there, it's the Republicans, look at those MAGA guys, those white supremacists. Damn it, why are they so black? And just removing the stick and saying, look, this is what is infected. So you can stay with me, you cannot stay with me. I could get down to talking to one person. I'd be okay with it. But I'd still be speaking truth, and I'd still be giving a microphone to people who feel largely invisible. And frankly, if that just heals my heart, if it gets me to a place where I can have honest conversations with people, that'd be enough. So I do ask that you actually support the show. I do ask that we're going to be pushing stuff out there. We have a free Tina t-shirt. And I think they don't have it yet. By the end of the show, we will have it. We'll have a free Tina t-shirt. This is not a free Tina t-shirt that we're going to do that is like, how do we make a bunch of money? It's a free Tina Peters shirt because frankly, everyone should be wearing this shirt everywhere they go. We're going to have a bumper sticker that says free Tina Peters. We're going to, and I'm authorized by Tina Peters to do this. But if we want to get to a place where we want to support her, we have to support her. And look, you can say whatever you want. Oh, this is a grift and you're doing this stuff right here. Okay, all right. Then don't buy anything. Don't listen. And let me just say something else, just so we're clear. So we understand something. In the last 35 months, how many paychecks have I taken, Apollo?
0.
Huh? How many?
0.
Has your paycheck ever bounced?
Nope.
Has anybody's?
No, not that I'm aware of, period.
I want us to be collectively a society and a community more than I care about how many dollars I have. And it has been a very difficult 4 years. And I don't complain about it because I signed up for it. Now, let's get back to the show for a minute. Hope you guys understand that was my rant. That was the one thing. And if you're on the audio version, you're probably fist pumping right now. I want to put this up here. Let's just start with this. JD Vance brought a little bit of dignity to CPAC, which I believe right now they've fallen off the wagon. Let's go hear what he has to say to young people who, by the way, are left behind so often by the Republican Party. It's sick. And yeah, the Democrat Party gives stupid, retarded young people the mic, but we don't give anybody the mic. You got to wait your turn. Think about that for just a minute. Let's play this.
I guess my message to young people generally is we're trying to make your life better. And that is the simple thrust of President Trump's policy is we want you to be able to buy a home. We want you to be able to work a good job. We want you to be able to raise your kids, like I said, according to the values that you believe in. And we want you to be able to build a nice life in this country that all of us love. That is what we're trying to do. And, you guys more than anybody, more than me, I'm talking about people under the age of 30 in particular, you guys are going to have to deal with the consequences of good policy or of bad policy for much longer than the rest of us. And I want you guys to think about the future and ask yourself, do you want safe communities? Do you want a prosperous life? Do you want to be able to work a good job? Or do you want that job shipped off to China or somewhere else? We're fighting for you every single day. We want you to help fight for us because we've got to win. Not just the policy battles of the next couple of months. We've got to win the midterm elections in a couple of years. We need you. We recognize that we need you, and we're fighting for you every single day.
So that's what he's saying to young people. We need you. But that's not what the Republican Party is signaling. They're not signaling that they need young people. They're signaling that they need more Democrats. You know, Lindy Lee. They need Lindy Lee, who stands up there and says that, oh, I'm with the Democrat Party, and they just make so many mistakes, and they need to change their platform. Oh, and I don't speak Chinese, but she does. And the basic lies turn into bigger lies, and there is no massive uncovering of things that Lindy Lee gave us. There's no massive uncovering that has come from the Republican Party. And yes, man, I tell you what, the Republican Party is like a barge with shitty boxes all over it. And then you have this shiny tower, little tower, and it says Trump on the side of it. And it should say Trump Vance on the side of it. But remember, we were so gung-ho over Pence. We were. Pence a good guy. He loves the Lord. But he didn't. He didn't love the Lord. He used the Lord. He used the Lord's name in order to create an affinity towards Christians. He wasn't truthful. I don't believe J.D. Vance is that guy. I don't believe he ever forgot where he came from. And proof of that is the fact that he's married to a beautiful woman of Indian descent. And he has been able to meld that and have beautiful children. And you may say, wow, that doesn't prove anything. There's a certain amount of annoyance that comes from coming from where he came from and recognizing the beauty of just seeing people for who they are. I've never seen a soul go to heaven where you could see the color of their skin. Can't. Because it doesn't exist. It's a shell that we have for a time such as this, for a very short time. But here's what he also said about humanizing unborn children. And I thought, and again, I just kind of told you a little bit of something that's a difficult thing for me to talk about, but let's have him do this. He made this statement about the unborn. Let's play it.
I think the most important thing that we can do, and as you know, Mercedes, I'm very pro-life, I'm a devout Christian, is that we have got to persuade our fellow Americans, because now we've got the power. We've got the power of persuasion. We've got to persuade our fellow citizens that unborn life is worthy of protecting. It is sacred in the eyes of God, and it should be sacred in the eyes of man too. And we have to pick up the torch and fight for that every single day. And I know you guys are up for the task. I am too. And I think on the administration side, what the president has said, and it's been consistent, it's going to be consistent in the rhetoric and in the policy, is we believe in the Trump administration that babies are good, that families are good, and we want to make it easier for young moms and young dads to choose life.
We want to make it so they can choose life. That hasn't really been an option up until now. Children are an absolute blessing. My kids, man, they're amazing. They're perfect, actually. They weren't always perfect, but they're perfect now. They got their heads together. People love dealing with them. They love engaging with them. You want to know why? Because they're not retarded. And the one thing that both of my kids said to me is like, you know what? They would remember this time that I was teaching my daughter how to ride a bike, 2 wheels. And she's 6 years old, and my son Matt is 4. And we're riding around this circle of pavement, and my son is he's rapping her, laughing at her because she's trying to learn how to ride a 2-wheeler. And he's like,
I'm going faster than you. He's got training wheels on. It's the craziest thing. You got this little kid that's just like tormenting his sister. His sister wanted to just reach out and choke the crap out of him because he'd ride by. Well, there was a bridge, and down the bridge was 11-foot like gully, like a cavern, right? You know, it's like you go across like a creek or something, but it's deep. This kid decides to reverse his going across the bridge and go the other way because he wanted to be able to come up behind his sister and like poke at her, right? Because before he was riding her the other way. I'm going fast. Look at me. Look at me. The little squirt missed the bridge. He missed the bridge and literally went off the cliff. Like, you ever seen Wile E. Coyote? He like went off the cliff. So I'm probably 50 yards away. And I go running towards it. I trip, fall, spin, get back up, go trip, fall, spin. I thought I was going to see something that was just, man, it was crazy. The third time that I went to fall, I literally slid at the last minute into it and fell all the way to the bottom. And my son is climbing up the other side with blood dripping all the way down his face. He has a helmet on. Don't ask me. I'm glad he had a helmet on. I mean, in hindsight, I never missed a bridge when I was a kid. So, sometimes I wonder how he missed that bridge, but he missed the bridge and he went all the way to the bottom. And I started climbing up and I just jumped like a spider monkey, grabbed him, held him tight, ripped my shirt off, put it on his head, took the shirt down, and there was a blue mark across his heart. And if anything you know about like a big bruise across his heart where the steering wheel had gone in. And I yell at Micah, go, because we're not that far from the house. We're probably 250 yards, maybe a little longer. And I said, go get the car immediately. And so she literally just takes off. She leaves her bike and she runs. She gets the car down and I grab my son and I put him in the car. And I thought I was going to lose my kid. You start to realize that, you know, that as a parent, you want to protect your child and everything else. And so we're driving to the hospital and there's so many stories like this with my son because he's a nutball. But we get to the hospital and everything's fine. That bruise over his heart is actually a bruise. It's not, you know, a tear, you know, of his heart or anything else. Because 11-foot drop on a bike, I got to tell you, a lot of bad things can happen. I say that because my son he actually was the one that was like, no big deal. I was the one freaking out. And so a lot of times we set up standards. Maybe this is like a life lesson. Maybe I'm just, you know, reminiscing a little bit here on the show. It's my show, so I get to do that. But a lot of times we set boundaries and we set up things that set our kids up for failure, that set the next generation up for failure, that there are parents that literally want to do well and their kid comes home after being groomed at school and says, you know, I think I want to be a boy and cut my penis off, or be a girl and cut my penis off. And the parent sits there and looks at their child and says, and remembers all the times before that they did not give adequate access to things. They felt like, oh, I think back to the punishment and not the way that they turned out, right? And so then you're like, oh yeah, I need to run around with a rainbow flag stuck to my ass now and tell everybody the trans rights because my kid, not recognizing that the kid was literally indoctrinated by some LARPer at school with a nose ring and a butt cheek ring and a butt plug and a bunch of other shit on them that no person in their right mind would want teaching their kid anything. And so JD Vance is basically saying that we got to get back to some sort of normality that we can't allow the deviant, we can't allow them to tell us something that's not true. And yet we spend most of our time catering to bullshit. And we don't just cater to bullshit here, we cater to bullshit everywhere. We got to be involved in a war over in Ukraine. And that somewhere along the line, we have to fight for their democracy. Since when? What the hell are we doing there anyway? Why are we fighting a proxy war? Why is Russia our enemy? Why has Russia been our enemy for 50 years? Right? Why is it we had the Cold War and it ended, that we have to go right back to it because some piece of shit that was taught by his father and grandfather said, we need to make sure that Russia is our enemy.
And who ever got rid of the idea that peace is not in the best interest of the people? So this is what he had to say. This is why I like Vance. I don't like Pence. He's a piece of shit. I like Vance. And at least we have one more person that is keeping eyes on the president that I think is ethical. Go ahead and play it.
Peace is in the interest of the American people, and he's going to fight for it for the remainder of his administration. Wherever war breaks out, he's going to be the president of peace. Now, he, of course, is a very good negotiator, a very good businessman. He recognizes that a lot of these issues are tough. It's going to take a smart statesman to figure this stuff out, but we've got that in the White House, and I really believe that we're on the cusp of peace in Europe for the first time in 3 years because we have leadership from the Oval Office, and we haven't had it in 4 years in this country.
We have not had it for 4 years in this country, and we are on the precipice of peace. And the media literally eviscerated him for that thought, for the idea that we could have peace. Imagine, can't have peace, not allowed to have peace. And then he went in and said something more about peace in foreign countries, and he ripped Germany a new butthole. I don't even know where they put the butthole, but probably on the front forehead of the people in leadership there that are part of this George Soros just owned machine. Good play it.
Germany's entire defense is subsidized by the American taxpayer. There are thousands upon thousands of American troops in Germany today. Do you think that the American taxpayer is going to stand for that if you get thrown in jail in Germany for posting a mean tweet? Of course they're not, right? So the point that I try to make to our European friends, and I think that they're our friends, I believe that, I know President Trump does, is that friendship is based on shared values. You do not have shared values if you're jailing people for saying we should close down our border. You don't have shared values if you cancel elections because you don't like the result, and that happened in Romania. You do not have shared values if you're so afraid of your own people that you silence them and shut them up. So let's have shared values. Let's defend democracy. Let's have free expression, not just in the United States, but all over the Western world. That is the path to strong alliances in Europe.
There you go. And yet they want to say that they're doing it for the greater good of the people. That's the same thing that they did with Hitler in Germany. There's no difference in what they did and the capturing and the silencing and the sleeper cells that were created over the last 100 years that led to the extermination of tens of millions of people. And by the way, it wasn't just 6 million Jews. There was 30, 40, 50 million people, depending on how you do the math, that were killed. You think the Jewish people were the only people that suffered massive losses? The same thing you say for Ukraine. You say, well, Joe, that's anti-Semitic. Is it? Is it anti-Semitic to call out the truth? And if the truth is so alarmingly offensive, then shouldn't we change what it is that we actually focus in on? True North. He also had this to say about protecting the borders. All the things, he covered it all. He literally did a fantastic job of covering it all. He had this to say about the borders.
Everything the president has done on the border, we have got to empower him to do it, not just for a month, but for the next 4 years. And we've got to hire more Border Patrol agents. We got to give Tom Homan and Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem the resources they need to secure the border. And just not to return to the border, but I think so many of our issues come back to the border, because if you take 30, 40 million illegal aliens, you take Medicare fraud, Social Security fraud. Why are we taking the people's Social Security payments and giving it to illegal aliens? We know that's happening in the United States of America today. We've got to stop it. If you get control of the border, Mercedes, you do more to control the fiscal problem, the financial problems that we have in this country than almost anything. Get illegal aliens out of our country, make sure American tax dollars go to American people. That is how you solve the fiscal crisis in the United States of America.
Okay. The last thing he talked about was his faith. We're going to end this on faith. And then I'm going to admit to you, Apollo, what am I about to admit? I was wrong.
Oh,
I think everyone needs to get out their calendar and write it down very succinctly. Get out in your backyard and carve it in the tree. The date by which Joe Altman was wrong. Because you're not going to get many chances. You're not going to get many chances of this. But before we talk about that, let's talk about faith. J.D. Vance talks about his faith. Man, and I want you to know something about J.D. Vance. The person on the left has a teleprompter, has a pad, a paper. Here's the one thing I appreciate about President Trump, in large part. Sometimes he gets off. But J.D. Vance does not need a teleprompter. He speaks in authentic terms. He doesn't have to look at a paper. He doesn't have to remind himself about what he's going to talk about. He's asked a question and he answers the question succinctly. You could say, hey, he went to, I think Yale, right? Harvard, Yale. He went to an Ivy League school. I mean, I went to a state school. I'm not that bright, I guess. Don't have a teleprompter. Maybe I need one. He had this to say about his faith. Let's just go ahead and get to it.
First is, I believe, like, the fundamental tenet of the Christian faith, it's not just a set of good moral principles, though it is that. I think the fundamental tenet of our faith is that the Son of God became man, he died, and then he raised himself from the dead. That is the fundamental tenet of the Christian faith, and I think so much flows from that. And I think one lesson that flows from that is that we shouldn't fear death. Of course, death is a very bad thing, but there are much more terrible things than just losing one's life, and importantly, you could lose one's soul. And I think whether it's fighting for the unborn or fighting for peace and security for our citizens, I want us to be the kind of society where my kids can grow up to be virtuous young people, can be good young Christians, of course, because that's what I'm trying to raise them to be. And that's what our public policy is trying to do. Creating the space where moms and dads can raise their children in their faith to become good young people who believe the things that I do. That is what I'm trying to create, is the space for you, of course, to raise your children as you see fit, but the space for me to raise my kids to be the kind of young people that I think they ought to be. And the other thing that I take from it, Mercedes, is if you look at the long history of the Christian faith, we've been around for about 2,000 years now, give or take a few years, and there have been really dark times in the history of the Christian faith. There have been really good times in the history of the Christian faith. And I just try to remind myself that we put our faith in God above, we put our faith in the grace of God, and we try the best to do His will, and we don't worry so much about whether we're going to have earthly rewards. We worry about whether we're doing right by God Almighty above. That's what I try to do, and that's how I try to run my life in public.
How about that? Godly rewards. That's and you can see his comfort in what he's saying. Like he doesn't just think this is a thing. It's not like he's making it up. It's a real thing for him. Now, can I get some music? Dun, 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 dun. Can I get any music? Can I get anything that basically is like victory music or even like an applause? Anything? Can I get anything that we could put up here that is like this? It tells the story about what we're about to announce that you should know. No. All right. Let me just say this. Kash Patel was confirmed. You know what's about to happen? You know what's about to happen? Let me just tell you this. Kash Patel is the 9th director of the Federal Bureau of Investigations. Nomination of Kash Patel of Nevada to be the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigations, nay 51,
nay 49, yay 51. Let me tell you what, and by the way, I was wrong. I said that they wouldn't let it happen. They tried everything that they could. Everything that they could. Everything. 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 By the way, it's not a mistake that I was actually canceled on the day that Kash Patel was actually put into office. And I pray with everything in me that the people that need to get back into the room, the Steve friends, the Garrett O'Boyles, the Kyle Seraphin. I hope Kyle Seraphin stays on the other side where he's doing good work on the podcast side. Kash Patel is now the acting director of the FBI. And now we have to have a conversation about what comes next. But this is a signaling that just happened. Before Kash was confirmed, Adam Schiff made this plea. I want you to listen to what he says. Play it.
This is someone we cannot trust. This is someone who lacks the character to do this job, someone who lacks the integrity to do this job. We know that. Our Republican colleagues know that. The only qualification Kash Patel has to be FBI director is that when everyone else in the first Trump administration said, no, I won't do that, that crosses moral, ethical, and legal lines, Kash Patel said, sign me up. In the first Trump administration, as we are seeing in the second, you rise to the level of your sycophancy, and no one is a bigger or more dangerous sycophant than Kash Patel. This political hack does not deserve to be in this building. He can't do the job. He won't protect the public. He will misuse the resources of the Bureau. He will weaponize it against the president's political opponents rather than protecting the safety, the public safety of the American people.
Adam Schiff is the worst criminal in Congress in the last 250 years. And what broke that we're going to talk about right now is Adam Schiff met with a whistleblower. Adam Schiff went to the podium day after day after day saying, I know nothing about this. We're not going to discuss it. We're going to protect it. And then Adam Schiff, led the prosecution of the impeachment trial in the Senate of President Donald Trump. Talk about someone who was conflicted out of the game because he was part of the hoax that brought Charmella in, manufactured that false accusation, and then peddled it out to the world, and he continued, not surprising, he's lied about almost everything in his life, but now he lied just to set up a presidential impeachment. And that's what I was talking about, these disinformation campaigns. And then he should be investigated because he lied to the world about his interactions with Charmella, who is a whistleblower, and I can't stress it enough, that started a presidential impeachment. Now, your history is way better than mine, but I can't remember the last time a president was actually impeached. It's a significant process and escalation, and it's reserved for the time when it actually shows a crime, not when it shows the manufacture of fake information to show a fake crime. The guy that found and manufactured the evidence with Charmella was the prosecutor in the case against the target of the investigation. That is the ultimate, from a prosecutorial standpoint, conflict of interest. But he knew what he was doing, and he thought he would never get exposed. And I think thanks to, I think it was John Solomon and his fantastic reporting, we now see what I've been saying for years, that I thought he met with him for sure, and it will come out, and it now has.
So let me translate all of that for you. Kash Patel is not qualified to be the head of the FBI because he is not corrupt. And as a result, I will be indicted, arrested, tried, convicted, and executed for treason if he's confirmed. Ultimately, it's not just Schiff. There's so many other people that need to be brought to justice. But not only that, but let me let you hear what Senator Chris Murphy said, from the Democrat from Connecticut, said before he was confirmed. Let's play it.
If you vote for Kash Patel more than any other confirmation vote you make, you will come to regret this one to your grave. I yield the floor.
You will regret it to your grave.
What is he saying? They're terrified. And just a reminder, he did actually say that he will cooperate and make sure that those are responsible and on the Epstein list are brought to justice. And he will permanently dismantle the child trafficking ring. Let's go ahead and play it.
I want to talk to you about the Epstein case. I have worked on this for years, trying to get those records of who flew on Epstein's plane and who helped him build this international human trafficking, sex trafficking ring. Now, earlier I urged then Chairman Durbin to subpoena those records, and I ended up being blocked by Senator Durbin and Christopher Wray. They stonewalled on this, and I know that breaking up these trafficking rings is important to President Trump. So will you work with me on this issue so we know who worked with Jeffrey Epstein in building these sex trafficking rings?
Absolutely, Senator. Child sex trafficking has no place in the United States of America, and I will do everything, if confirmed as FBI director, to make sure the American public knows the full weight of what happened in the past.
Full weight of everything that happens in the past. We're gonna wrap up. Listen to me. You have a opportunity here to that we've never seen. This is the greatest time in the world to be alive, and this just came in. This is super important. We just got this video. Let's play this cut 5. This Kash Patel is making his rounds. You got to see this. Knock, knock. Knock, knock. Apollo, knock, knock. Knock, knock, Apollo. Kash.
Kash who?
Kash is coming for you. It's going to be glorious. I'm pretty excited about what's to come. I think you all should be as well. There's another person that we should probably talk about that is overlooked. Tina Peters is overlooked. She sent a text last night that was pretty ominous. I will tell you that they are very much so paying attention to what's being said in the media, and what I want to thank everyone who reached out and said, "Listen, what you're doing to Tina Peters is wrong." So I wrote this last night, and I'll kind of read it to you. Update. Well, it appears they are reading the socials and paying attention. Tina is in limbo at the moment, but at least they are retracting some of their punishment, although we are still not sure that is the case. This is from Tina Peters last night. X-Tablet is shut down in 3 minutes. I was handcuffed and taken to booking today and strip searched, more abused right later. I want you all to follow the reality of a Gold Star mom who has trusted tons of people. Those people said, get on the stage and speak. Give us the image. We will protect you. We will defend you. We will never leave you. But they did leave her. Tina rotted in a prison that they put her in. Like I said before, it's not the left that created the issue. It's the people that serve themselves to be relevant, that use Tina as a battering ram for their own agenda. The left conspired and did what they do, lied, cheated, and bullied. Yet this is much worse. What is worse is not the people who betrayed her as if they were doing the work while they privately served themselves. I am disgusted. I'm angry, and frankly, I do not understand the lack of character and selfishness. I go on to say this to the President of the United States, President Trump. Mr. President, I have nothing to give that you do not already have. Yet if you ask for it, I will gladly surrender it. I will tell you that the people would
The people you would have expected to serve the interests of those who stood did not. States should not be able to thumb their nose at you, and with blatant corruption strip Tina Peters of her freedom and her dignity. The facts are the facts. You cannot say that elections are fraudulent and stolen and ignore a woman paying the price for the factual data that is certainly damning, conclusive, and indisputable. You have the ability to step in the gap and be the greater magistrate. You have so far created peace in foreign lands, restored order and dignity to our partner nations. You have, with the swipe of a pen, lifted roadblocks across the country and given opportunity back to the most disadvantaged Americans. Sometimes you can take a break from what looks important to serve the interests of the least among us. In this case, it is Tina Peters, the 69-year-old Gold Star mom and patriot to her nation and its people. She is someone who has given enough. I go on to say that Psalms 82, 3 and 4, defend the poor and fatherless, do justice to the afflicted and needy, deliver the poor and needy, rid them out of the hand of the wicked. With great respect, one of many. I want to leave this with you and say this. Look, what's right is rarely popular. What's popular is rarely right. And at some point, we're going to have to come to a place where we recognize that we have to do the greater good. We have to stand up for the people that are the most vulnerable among us. And we have to ignore those people that have done great harm to not only our communities, to our country, have pushed chaos. We have to ignore them. And we have to focus on the people that, frankly, deserve our loyalty. Tina deserves our loyalty. I don't know if we have it yet, but we will put we will put a hat up. I don't know if we have it yet. There we go. It'll be a simple hat, or shirt. You can put it up here. Free Tina Peters. We will have it up on the site by tomorrow. You can go to honorboundusa.com and we will have these shirts. I don't know if you want to put it up there. There you go. Free Tina Peters. And we will have it on the front and the back. It'll be on both sides. But we will have that shirt on the website, honorboundusa.com, and you'll be able to pick up that shirt. And you'll be able to pick up one of these hats. So this will be done by tomorrow too. For all the people that have literally been bugging the crap out of me about these hats. I want to see you guys walking around the streets with these hats. I probably get 25 to 30 people a week that are like, hey, what does that hat mean? So it's True North. It's a Delta. It's a change. It's a change you've been looking for. So that's what it means. Let's go ahead and pray it out. Paul, you got anything?
I'm good.
Sorry?
I'm good. Just working on that stuff for Monday.
All right. Awesome. All right, Father God, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Thank you for our guests. Thank you for Jake standing up. Father, I would ask you to give him wisdom. I would ask you to give him patience. I would ask you to give him a tongue that allows for him to heal some of the wickedness that keeps being pushed against him and other J6ers. Father, we're very grateful for Colonel Rob Maness. We're grateful for his commitment over 32 years. We're grateful for his faithfulness. We're grateful for his service that he continues through in order to speak to the American people. Father, I would just ask you to also give him the ability to stand in the gap, speak truth, and to focus more readily today than ever before on the restoration of you in our community, our country, and our world. Father, we're grateful for the opportunities that we have in our lives. We don't want to walk past the blessings that we have as we start to work the problems that exist in front of us. Father, I'd ask you that you would give us clear vision and that you would equip us with the things that we need to have in order to solve the problems that we face. And Father, I just ask that we can maybe get to a place where we can seek to understand each other and eliminate this chasm, this divide that we have within our communities that has been created by people in our country who are just flat evil. And Father, we need to recognize where they are, whether they're on the left or the right. We need to recognize and we need to hold them accountable for their behaviors and for the things that they have done to make victims out of people in our communities and country. Father, I ask you to give us the strength and the courage to continue to stand in the gap. And Father, I ask for a brave and bold prayer. Release Tina Peters. And Father, I know everything happens in your time, but you can't ask for a bold prayer without it being received and without asking for it. So I would ask that happen immediately, Father, that
that Tina Peters be released in the next couple days, not months. And the President Trump can hear the plight, hear the words that are being spoken, the prayers that are being spoken, that he can move quickly, swiftly within his power to get Tina out of jail. Father, I would ask this boldly. I would ask that you deliver her from where she is right now. And Father, I would ask you to give the voice of those that need to speak the voice, and to reduce the voice of those people who are institutionally endowed by an organization that does not want peace, that those voices would be silenced. I ask for your guidance, Father. I ask for humility. I ask for the ability to do your work, and that the others around me may be able to do their work as well. And they may be blessed with the ability not to have to concentrate on some things and concentrate only the things that you want us to work on. I ask for these things, Father, humbly and with great gratefulness. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. All right, I will see you guys tomorrow. I am headed to go buy some more guns. So go to dcfguns.com, use that, and I look forward to seeing you guys later. I keep going long. I appreciate many of you for staying with me. Hit the share button. There's a little button on the side that says thumbs up. I keep telling you guys to hit the thumbs up on your way out. There's no reason why you can't. Just hit the thumbs up button. Hit that little button that says thumbs up. Thumbs up. Thumbs up. Here, I'm going to wait here until we get it up. Let's see here. Come on, keep hitting it. Keep hitting the little thumbs up button. Thumbs up, thumbs up. Those that are on Pilled, I want to thank you for everything on your side. I want to thank you for Matt and Matt over at Pilled. Those that are on Pilled, I want to thank you for everything on your side. I don't know why it's not letting me. I want to thank you for Matt and Matt over at Pilled. Can you guys hear all that? Did you hear that, Paulo?
Yes.
Or is it just in my ear?
No, I heard it.
Oops. Sorry. I don't know how to fix that. Yeah. And on YouTube, you can go over to YouTube and at least follow us, give us a subscribe. And it looks like there's people over there. Hit the little thumbs up button if you're on YouTube. Everywhere you go, hit it. I'm going to see if you got any more. Okay, keep going. Yeah, I got 200 more. I can do this all day. 200 more, just a little thumbs up. I mean, I have the thumbs down guys already. That's already handled. We got Eric Coomer and probably one more little simp. Maybe it's Jovan Pulitzer. Nonstop Sherry, Jolt, thank you and bless you for your unfailing love for Tina. Thank you for being an honorable, upright man. Thank you for every sacrifice you have made to stand for truth. Much love and gratitude. Nonstop Sherry, thank you. I appreciate that. Allie, it's good to see you. Remember what I said, stay faithful. Keep your eyes up, head forward. God bless Joe and Apollo. Susan Rice, the good Susan Rice. I'll always love her. Lynn Boss, I'm going to sit here and do this till you guys get me some more people. Can we hit those little thumbs up button? Gammy, give me a thumbs up. Jeff, give me a thumbs up. Guys, you should be pressuring people out there. Give me a thumbs up. Jody, thumbs up. Shirts, Hebrew 13:3. Jeff, you're right. So right. What I appreciate about Jeff is he sends me text messages. He calls me out all the time. I'm like, Jeff, that's not true. He's like, oh, this is true. I need to talk about this. Like, all right, let me tell you why. But he always comes back to iron sharpens iron. So I do appreciate that about you, Jeff. Thank you very much. And he looks out for other people. Sir David, the Dragon Slayer, Echo. You have an echo? Do I have an echo? Verge, thank you, boys. Love you both. Give you a thumbs up on my way out. Appreciate you. Come on. I want a little bit more. You guys can do it. I just need 200 more here. Just hit the little button. Come on. You're killing me, guys. Am I done, really? Am I done with all the thumbs up? You guys not know where it is? I'm still sitting here for a minute. I'm going to sit here for a minute till I get all my thumbs up from the people that are here. Thumbs up. Little thumbs up. I'm kind of having, I don't know what you do on, what do you do on X? You do a thumb up on X?
Heart it.
Oh, yeah, just share it. Hit the share button. You should have, what is it, like 273, 272. Yeah, everybody hit the little share button. Just hit the share button. Even if you don't like me, hit the share button. Because you have to admit, it's pretty interesting. Same with on Pilled. Give me the little red dot that says agree. I hit that little button too. Let me see if anybody else did it. No, you guys are all done with it. Okay, I'm done too then. All right, God bless you. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm going to start going less time unless you guys start giving me the thumbs up button. So God bless you all. We'll see you soon.